Hey everyone, welcome back to Mid-Sized and Middle-Aged. And I wanted to do a different type of video today. So I keep thinking about, I've really just shown like this little chunk of who I am and what I'm about. And I might lose 250 of my 300 or 400 subscribers. It's not that many. I'm not making any money off this channel, right? So I figured as long as I'm still early in doing this, I really want to be authentic. And I'm hoping I can still do that on camera. And I'm hoping you'll still like me. And if you don't, I understand, but I gotta be true to myself. And that's been the one thing that through all of my own personal challenges in life, I've always been completely true to myself. So I wanted to do what I believe in, kind of like who I am, what I stand for, and who you're following, kind of like not a mantra, but like just like a list of things that I find to be personally important and beliefs that I hold. And I know a lot of them are going to be divisive, but I also respect you if you respect other people's beliefs, right? So if you don't believe the same way I do, I still respect you, and your right to have the beliefs you have. And that's all they are beliefs, right or wrong. If you think it's trendy, if you think I'm being a social justice warrior, whatever. But I have to be true to who I am. And one of the things that I strongly believe in is justice. One of the reasons why I became a foster parent was because I have been part of a large organization that is a choir. In part, the choir kind of keeps everybody together, but everybody has to do volunteer work. And a lot of the projects that we do are within underserved communities. So everything from low-performing high schools to prisons to people in drug and alcohol recovery, and disabled or differently abled, and all the populations, formerly homeless, many of the populations who need us the most, right? So that's something that has been important to me, that I've been part of for about 11 or 12 years since it started. It's called Harmony Project, and it's a really big part of who I am, is that this has been important to me to be part of something that is service oriented, right? Like you can be part of choirs, but something that's service oriented. So the service project that I did was at the women's prison. And I might have mentioned this in the past before. And I had a very different impression of people who were behind bars when I went there. I thought, first of all, they were mostly going to be Black. And this is my own bias as a white woman. I thought probably 90%, maybe 80% Black people. Well, certainly there is a higher incarceration rate for people of color because of justice being served differently for people of different populations, namely people of African American descent. So in a sense, I was right that the population was maybe 40 to 50% African American, but that's because the justice is doled out differently. So that was one preconceived notion that I had. Another thing was that I thought I wouldn't relate to people, not that I thought I was better than people, because I mean, for sure, I know I have a lot of shortcomings. And sometimes I do realize that I have a hard time seeing past myself, and I'm gonna hide this because it's drawing attention. Anyway, so I felt like just that I would feel different. Like I wouldn't maybe not fit in, because I'm like, I don't want to be in prison. But the thing is, pretty much nobody there wants to be either. There's a whole life that happens behind those walls. It's kind of like going to a really restrictive high school where you can't get out. And there are different levels of like sentences. So if you have a life sentence, everybody knows that person will always be there. So anyway, not about the prison culture. I don't know enough from the inside, but I did volunteer at the women's prison here in Ohio. for 7 or 8 of the last years through the Harmony Project. And I met amazing people, and people who have now been out for years, who I, consider to be my friends. And a decade ago, I don't think I would have really thought of that. Not that I wouldn't have thought of it, but I didn't know anybody who had been to prison. It just shows my privilege. And so then once I was exposed to people who had been through this and were currently in the prison system, I met a lot of people whose children were in foster care. And these people were dealing with drug and alcohol recovery at that point. And knowing that a lot of their kids were in homes where it wasn't good. Suddenly you're sober. Imagine you have this disease. You've had trauma in your life that led to having this disease, which is kind of a crazy life arc, right? But then you have children and you love them dearly, but you might have put them in precarious positions because of your drug and alcohol addiction. And they've been taken from you. They've been placed with strangers. These strangers, they don't let you talk to your child. Because you're in prison, you can't see your child. But if you were out, you may or may not be able to see them for about an hour a week supervised, maybe 2 hours if you're lucky. And they speak badly about you to your kids. They don't really know your inner workings. And I just thought, could you add insult to injury? These kids have been through enough, right? The kids have been through so much already. Then they're taken from their home, which sometimes that's for the best. But then you've got people who are deliberately working against you. If you're serving a year or two, you get sober, you are determined, and you are going to do it, you should be able to get your children back. That is a lifetime. But I also just thought, I have a home, I've got love to give, I've got love to spare, and that volunteering really just changed my mindset and what it made me want to become a foster parent. So that's my journey. I am not probably the typical foster parent. I would say I consider myself to be extremely liberal on a spectrum of right wing being ultra. Would that be backwards? Right wing, I think for you guys. Wait, right wing? I don't know. Right wing being ultra conservative, left wing being ultra liberal. I'm on the far left, okay? So if that makes you not want to watch me anymore, again, it's who I am. A lot of people who are center right, even center left are doing fostering for religious reasons, which is still completely valid and coming from a good place and wanting to help children or families reunite. And I'm all for whatever your reasons are, as long as they're, wanting to help children and families. So not a lot of progressives really decide to become foster families. So I do feel like we're kind of not the normal foster family. So we don't go to church. We don't take our kids to church. And sort of fortunately for us, we were placed with older kids who weren't religious. Our kids actually do enjoy going to a local youth group that hasn't been pushy to them as of yet about what beliefs they have or don't have. It's just a sort of young, I want to say just a good situation for them to be around kids doing not bad things, right? I'm all for that. And again, if you are super religious, I have friends, I have, colleagues who I respect greatly that are super religious. This is not against religion. This is not against any other belief set. I'm just telling you what my beliefs are. Okay. So there's the other thing. I'm super progressive, super liberal. And if you want it, broken down, AOC, love her. Elizabeth Warren, love her, wanted to vote for her. Wasn't a big Bernie fan, but not anti-Bernie. 5 years ago, I was on Team Bernie. But I feel like he's got some racial justice problems that bother me a little bit. So Elizabeth Warren was my pony. I did some work for her campaign, was it like 2 years ago? Year and a half ago? Whenever she was like building steam. So yeah, I feel like those are some of the things that I stand for. I am for women's health and for the ability to control your own body. So that's another thing that I strongly feel passionate about. I will say when it comes to women's choice for their pregnancies and for planning, family planning, I used to be of the mind that was like, well, I'm vegetarian, so I don't kill animals. So I also I couldn't kill a fetus is kind of where I used to stand. And while that might have been true, I do feel like in my early to mid 20s, there definitely could have been some moments where I was not prepared at all to become a mother. And who knows what the outcome would have been if those pregnancy tests that I took back then came back positive. But fortunately, as it was, they always came back negative. I don't think I was really able to conceive. So there's another thing about me. So yeah, super pro-choice. If that bugs you, I respect your opinion if it is different than mine and your beliefs, because they are opinions and beliefs. And I think that they can drive us, they can define us. And I feel like we can also have respectful discussions about them with each other, which I don't feel like happen very much. When it comes to racial justice, that's been something that my eyes have been opened to. We bought a house in the inner city at the end of 2012, and I probably had not been as exposed to the Black community until then. Additionally, being in Harmony Project, which is a diverse organization, I've become close with a lot of people of color. I am so grateful for my eyes being opened. I cannot believe how blind I was before. I felt like, well, I'm all about equality. Of course. Why don't I have any Black friends? I definitely would think that. I would really like to have some Black friends. So I feel like there's probably an arc that I've witnessed from joining Harmony Project and moving into the inner city, where there was redlining. If you don't know what redlining is, I very much urge you to look into that. And I see clients in my home studio, which is where I'm at. And my 95% white client base would often park in front of my home, which by the way is lovely. I have a lovely home in a neighborhood that's considered not good. People would park in front of my house, which, I should also say, it's become completely gentrified in the last couple years. So Columbus is on fire with real estate like so many other cities. And it's become desirable. We just refinanced. It's worth triple what we paid for it 9 years ago. So because of that, my white clients, especially I'd say 8, 9 years ago, would park in front of my house and they'd come in and they'd say, "Is my car safe here?" I'd be like, "Yeah." I mean, there's been a couple incidents, but it's always in the middle of the night. So yeah, I find that telling. And the more I heard it from my white clients only, the more I was like, did you see a Black person? Did that scare you? Obviously, I'm not going to say that because I have those biases. I had them too. We don't even realize that we have biases because they're so ingrained in who we are as white people that live in the suburbs. I lived by campus, by OSU campus, which is kind of diverse, but it's mostly white. Let's be honest. It's 90% white. So when you see Black people, they're in the context of school. They're in the context of being 1 or 2 Black people amongst 10 Black people. So, sorry about that. So, I don't think that I would have readily admitted to my own personal bias. I still have it, you guys. I'm still working on it. You don't suddenly get cured of the racism that America teaches us. It is an ongoing process. And guess what? There's no Black person out there who needs to teach me because they are exhausted. I cannot imagine waking up and dealing with racist BS that you have to deal with being Black in America right now. Or ever. Please be clear that because there are protests now, it is not worse now. If anything, it might be slightly better because there are few and far between people like me that are starting to wake up, but I am far from perfect. I have a long way to go on my journey to truly understanding racial bias. I do think that reading books that can help you, listening to podcasts, reading articles, strongly suggested. I just recently read a very humorous take from Amber Ruffin, who is hilarious. She's on Seth Meyers' show as a commentator and also does her own late night show, which you can watch clips of on YouTube. Amber Ruffin, amazing, love her. Constantly reposting stuff from her. So her book is You'll Never Believe What They Said About Lacey, I think, something like that. Lacey is her sister, and her sister lives in Omaha, Nebraska. So it's about the bias that she has to talk to her sister about because she's been living in New York, which is a lot more racially diverse. So Amber still gets it, but her sister Lacey in Middle America gets it way worse. So yeah, if you don't think that Black Lives Matter is an organization that needs to have a light shined on it, then you probably are following the wrong person. If you think the thin blue line is acceptable, you're probably following the wrong person. If you say things like all lives matter or blue lives matter and you don't understand how that's problematic, you are probably following the wrong account. But I will still keep talking about it, and it's okay. I don't hate anybody because I have not understood myself. I haven't understood it either. And I feel like if you say these things, I hope that you trust me enough as your white sister. And for any of my sisters of color out there, I'm so happy that my dumb white butt has not turned you off. So for my white girls out there, if you hear those things and they make you feel uncomfortable, I urge you to sit in that discomfort, to push through it, and to ask questions about your discomfort. Because I'm still going through a lot of those uncomfortable moments myself. And I urge you to read as much as you can and perhaps change your news sources. If you think that a lot of the media is biased against white people, I very much urge you to change your news sources, or at least consider it. I hope that more people will be open to thinking outside of what keeps them comfortable and what keeps them in power, because that's what is going on. Is there is a struggle that lies underneath all of this, that white people fear they are losing power, and white men in particular. So as women, we have been conditioned to sit quietly by while our white men are super angry. And I urge you to speak up to your white male cohorts and tell them there might be some truth to it. Or I'm not sure that we can fully understand what it's like to be a person of color. And on that note, we also, I would like to talk also about the LGBTQ plus community and how strongly I support that. Look at all of these social justice warrior things that I'm saying. Oh my gosh, I'm going to turn off a good 50% of you. And I hope that I turn on another 50%, or the people who are turned off, that you still trust me and know that I'm coming from a good place. Because that's what we need to do. We still need to talk to each other. Even if you don't believe that people who are gay are born that way, I still want you to trust me in knowing that everybody deserves to love who they want to love. Guess what? Even if they're not born that way, don't they still get to choose who they love? And who cares? Your God is against it? You think that God made somebody, if you believe in a God who would make somebody love somebody and then not be able to be their true authentic self, Is that God truly good? It's something to think about. People do not choose a path that will cause them pain. Do you know how many trans people commit suicide every year? And trigger warning, it's a lot because it's very hard because you are born that way. You are born that way, you guys. Have I covered it all? Probably not even close. But I think I'm scratching the surface, and I feel like you're gonna have a better idea of who I am after this video. I do want to talk to you about some crazy things that have happened to me as an overweight person. And I'm trying to figure out a way to talk about them in a way that does not make me a victim, because I have an itch in my nose. Because being a victim feels icky to me. And whether or not I probably did some crazy stuff to deserve some of these things, because also when you're an overweight woman or person in general, you do protective things and you do things that now with a little bit of perspective, I realize how unhealthy they were. And we'll talk more about that in another video because I definitely want to get into that. And I hope that this content is of interest to you, and I hope that you have a better sense of who I am and still want to follow me. Even if you don't agree with me, I would still like for you to follow me and give me a chance. It's a little bit about who I am and what I believe, and I appreciate you guys sticking around. I'm Joy, mid-sized and middle-aged, and thank you for watching.